Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am the Twisted Jedi, and today I'm going to give you my tips and tricks, as well as what I think are the best star cards to equip when you want to dominate with Rey in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now call it what you want in the movie world, but the fact of the matter is, in Battlefront 2, when used correctly, Rey can be extremely powerful. If you want tips and tricks and the best star cards for other heroes in Battlefront 2, then definitely check them out on my channel after this, as there are about 4 or 5 other hero guides up there already. Anyways, let's talk about Rey. Even without any star cards attached, her abilities alone are effective in Galactic Assault and Heroes vs Villains, but what I'm going to do today is discuss the best maps to use Rey, some tips and tricks to getting good kill streaks, and also the best star cards for not only Galactic Assault, but Heroes vs Villains as well. Keep in mind there will be 2 different sets of star cards, one for GA and one for Heroes vs Villains, as she needs to have different options in different scenarios, so be sure to watch the whole video in order to gain the most out of this hero guide. Now firstly, you want to use Rey on the right maps in Galactic Assault, and in my opinion she can be really effective on the Death Star 2 for starters. With her inside ability in combination with the narrow corridors, you can always see your enemies coming, and once they turn the corner, they have no chance of escape because it's just too narrow. She can also be really good on Jakku and also Starkiller base, and I've personally had some really great streaks with her on both of those maps. As far as tips and tricks for Rey, she is basically the same as most of the lightsaber users, and there are a few things you should definitely focus on. Some of these are super simple, but when neglected, they lead to an early death. The first tip I want to give you is to make sure you use the block and deflect with the lightsaber. Yes, this is obvious, but I see a lot of people charge into lightsaber battles and get destroyed because they're spamming the attack button instead of being smart and using the block to deflect enemy fire. The second tip is to use the dodge side to side to avoid blaster fire. If you are low on health, this might be the difference between surviving and dying, because even with the deflective blaster fire, you can't deflect every single shot if you have multiple enemies attacking you, and if you do also, the stamina will build up really quickly, and that's going to lead to your block being ineffective. Third is a tip for Heroes vs Villains, or just going up against other villains in general. Rey's dash strike or left bumper ability not only charges forward and deals damage to your opponent, but it will also knock them to the ground. This gives you a huge advantage against villains in the game, and if you dash strike them from behind and then start swinging with your regular attack after that, you can pretty much wipe out an enemy hero without taking very much damage at all. Now, while we're talking about her dash strike, tip number 4 is definitely something new players might not know. After you activate the dash strike, Rey charges forward and pretty much doesn't stop for about 10 meters. If you're playing outside on Kamino, this could mean falling off the edge of the map if you're not careful. But if you use the dash strike and then halfway through the charge, you hit your regular swing attack, which for console is the right trigger, and for PC should be your left mouse click, you can cut the dash strike short and end it when you want to. Getting into the 5th tip is looking into her insight ability. Now most people think this ability just sees through walls and reveals enemies, but if you take a close look at the description, it also not only makes her icon disappear from the minimap so she can't be seen by enemies, but she also gets increased stamina while it is active, as well as an increase in damage output. So that ability is definitely something you should be using a lot. To get that extra damage output can be crucial, especially in Heroes vs Villains. So guys, those are the 5 tips and tricks to help you dominate with Rey on the battlefield, and some of those should also help you with all lightsaber users in general. Now let's move on to the best star cards for Galactic Assault. So for GA, like using any hero, the aim is to stay alive as long as possible and rack up some awesome kill streaks, so you can either brag to your friends about it or record it and post it online, or whatever you want to do with the footage. So the first goal is survivability, and it just so happens that Rey has a star card called Survivor. This card gives 20 bonus health back when defeating an enemy trooper, and 60 health for defeating an enemy hero when it's maxed out at the epic level. This card is essential when trying to stay alive as long as possible, and in GA it can be really useful. The second card I use is called Focused Sight. Now what this card does is increases the active time of Rey's insight ability for up to 7 extra seconds when it's at that epic level. Think about it. If you can see enemies through walls for an extra 7 seconds, you can get a bunch of kills in that time, as well as avoid being crept up on and ambushed by a full squad. Not only that, but think about what I said earlier with Rey's insight ability description. It also increases stamina and damage output. So you get an extra 7 seconds seconds with bonus damage, which can be a massive advantage, not just in GA, but in Heroes vs Villains as well. With the third card for GA, you have two options. If you're on a really big open map, then I suggest using the Farsight ability, which increases the range of insight up to 40%, making it easier to spot enemies in the distance or hiding behind trees so that you can hunt them down. This card combined with the Focus Sight card can be a nightmare for enemies, and on the second phase of Endor or Kashyyyk and Yavin 4, it's really effective. The second option for your last card in Galactic Assault is Damaging Strike. If you're on a map like the Death Star or inside Starkiller base, this can be really useful. This card allows Rey's Dash Strike to do up to 30 bonus damage per target hit. So the more targets you hit, the more damage you will do. Personally, I have pulled off some sick multi-kills in corridors outside the palace on Naboo and in the corridors on Jakku moving into the third phase, as enemies tend to bunch up around those areas, and it just makes it really easy for Rey to charge in there and wipe them all out. So those have been the cards I use for Galactic Assault, guys. I hope that helps out your gameplay. Now let's jump into Heroes vs Villains. Heroes vs Villains is a completely different playstyle to Galactic Assault. With this game mode, you rely heavily on your abilities as well as your skills with a lightsaber. So what we want to do is buff up Rey's damage output and her abilities effects. The first star card is one we used in GA, which is Focused Sight. Remember, this is going to give us 7 seconds of extra time with Insight active and also 7 seconds of bonus damage and stamina. So you can be swinging your lightsaber as much as you want and not worry about running out of stamina and then not being able to block perhaps a blaster wielder. So that is really useful as well. Going up against the likes of Vader, who has bonus health and a Furious Resilience health buff, can be a struggle. So this card will definitely help in that situation. Now moving on, you don't really need the Survivor card or Damaging Strike for Heroes vs Villains, so you can unequip both of those. With Rey's boosted active time for Insight with the Focus Sight star card that we just spoke about, you want to combine this with the Deep Mind card. Now Deep Mind allows Mind Trick to last 30% longer on enemies revealed by Insight. So it will leave all of your enemies very confused and struggling to aim at you as well if they are a blaster hero. Now that they are confused with Mind Trick for a longer time, you want to stack another card on top of this for maximum effectiveness against villains. The Opportunist star card deals up to 15 bonus damage on top of Rey's regular strikes to anyone that is affected by Mind Trick. So these last two cards we've spoken about really work well together and are perfect for maximum damage in Heroes vs Villains. Now keep in mind, when using Mind Trick, even if your opponent is blocking with their lightsaber, they cannot block the Mind Trick ability. It will go through the saber and they will still be confused. I've seen an absolute ton of enemies get Mind Tricked through their lightsaber and then they don't think it's worked and they try to dash one way and end up going the other and falling off the edge of the map. So it's really a great ability and can be quite funny on maps that have edges to fall off, like Kashyyyk and Kamino. So guys, as you can see, dominating with Rey in Heroes vs Villains is all about stacking the right cards together for maximum ability effect, damage, and overall pretty much just frustrating the other team as much as possible when you confuse them for what feels like an eternity and then they die before they even have the chance to get away or get a hit on you. Remember to utilize all of Rey's abilities, and if you can hit enemies with the dash strike and knock them down, it should be a kill almost every time. I hope these star card loadouts have helped you with deciding what to use for Rey in the future. If it has, smash a like and comment down below what cards you were using for Rey before and if this loadout sounds good to you. Before I close out this video, I did want to say that with the upcoming customization update set for sometime in April, it would definitely be cool to see Rey get a new skin or two. With the devs adding 40 new skins to the game, you would think at least one of those would go towards Rey. Now I know that we already have the scavenger outfit from Jakku and then her Last Jedi outfit as well, but the one I really want to see is Rey with her poncho from The Last Jedi. This skin just looks awesome to me and reminds me of when Qui-Gon Jinn wore one in The Phantom Menace and when Luke wore one just like it in the original trilogy. Another skin they could possibly add for Rey is the training outfit she wore on Arc 2 with the high collar. This was another sweet look for her and I hope it makes its way into the game at some point. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope it helped you out with some tips and tricks as well as the best best star cards for Rey in the future. And remember, if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell to be updated with new videos in the future, as well as more hero guides like this as well. As always, thank you so much for watching and tuning into the channel. May the Force be with you always.